A couple of things to think about with the pre-election developments. And what we want to do is we want to compare what we were looking at 4 years ago to what we're looking at today. And so one thing's for sure, the polling industry did a lot of research and they learned a lot from what happened 4 years ago. Absolutely, no doubt. As a matter of fact, the major national pollsters are not only making projections, but they're making projections about if we make the same mistakes that we made 4 years ago, it could go this way for Biden or it could go this way for Trump. So they've gotten pretty sophisticated. They know what they did wrong. And part of it is that they had no clue about the impact of social media, especially in the Midwest states like Michigan and Ohio and Wisconsin. So first things first, these guys have gotten better. And so their polling is a lot more sophisticated. They're not just making projections, but they're also saying, if we messed up as much as we did 4 years ago, this is what could happen. If we mess up in Trump's direction, this is what's going to happen. If we mess up in Biden's direction, this is what can happen. So it's pretty sophisticated. And we can talk about the history of polling if you want to talk about that later. But apart from that, a couple of points, actually about 4 or 5 points. The number of undecideds today compared to 4 years ago, literally cut in half. So we had about 11% undecided last year. Vast majority, last year, 4 years ago, the vast majority of those undecideds went for Trump. That number has been cut in half. So today there's about 4.5%, 5% who are undecided. And more importantly, most of the undecideds who are no longer there, they went to Biden. So half of the undecideds have been cut out. Those ones who have been cut out are moving towards Biden. And so we don't have that big surprise from undecideds like we did 4 years ago. Another thing to consider is we do not have a viable or high-profile third-party candidate. And no, Kanye West doesn't count. So think about it. We had Joe Stein. We had the former governor from Gary Johnson. And they siphoned off probably 1.5% to 2% in virtually every state that they were in from Hillary Clinton. That, for all intents and purposes, they drained drained votes from Hillary Clinton. Okay, so we don't have any viable third-party candidates. Third, Joe Biden's lead nationally is effectively double what Hillary had 4 years ago. And this includes in many of the swing states, not all of them, but many of them. So Biden actually has a lead, not just nationally, that is much higher than Hillary's was 4 years ago, but also in the swing states. So what we're starting to see here, putting all this together, is that things are really moving towards Biden winning. Now, whether it's a landslide, we don't know. It's there's a number of things that we're going to have to look at. But here's another thing. Hillary Clinton had very high unfavorable poll numbers. Almost 20% of the country, effectively, they were tired of the Clintons. And so almost 20% of the population didn't like Hillary. And a lot of it had to do with misogyny in the country, whatever it was, they were just tired of the Clintons. And so Biden has nowhere near those numbers of dislikability. It's not even close. And so in order for things to tip against Biden, it's mathematically, it's possible, but at the moment, it doesn't look so. Last thing, people were happy with where the economy was and where things were 4 years ago. Not so much this time. And more importantly, they're not happy and they can look at Donald Trump's record. They had no clue about Donald Trump 4 years ago. And everybody was saying, hey, this is pretty good. Recovery's great. But let's give the new guy a try. People know Donald Trump now. and vast majority of Americans are not happy with the direction of the country. So with that big picture stuff, there's room to say that this looks like tonight's going to go Biden's way. And more importantly, it's not just the presidential stuff. We're also looking at Trump dragging down the Senate race and the congressional races, the House of Representatives. And so the expectation is that the Republicans are not going to be in charge of the Senate after this election. The exact number of Republicans who lose, we're not sure about, but my guess is if the numbers hold steady and the expectations hold steady, the Democrats end up winning control of the Senate 51 to 49, 52 to 48, something like to that effect. There are a couple of big swing states we can worry about, but the Senate looks like, if all things hold steady, that it's going to go towards the Democrats. And here's the important one. In the House of Representatives, the Republicans are expecting to lose at least 6 to 12 seats and maybe even more. And if that happens, expect Kevin McCarthy to be ousted from his position and probably be discarded in the sense of he'll get probably the worst office in Congress, at least as a form of punishment. Yeah.
Okay, so Jen asked in the chat, do you think Americans are trusting the voting process? Do you think people will accept the outcome of the elections? If the Republicans lose as badly as you think they will they accept those outcomes or fight back?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. As a matter of fact, it gets into what the heart of democracy is in accepting not only our institutions, but our processes. And unfortunately, both our institutions and our processes have taken a beating over the last 4 years. And unfortunately, there are a good number of people who doubt both the institutions and our processes. They're very skeptical. And it doesn't help when the President of the United States is adding fuel to this fire. Fact of the matter is, people need to trust these institutions. We really haven't changed the way we do anything over the last 40 years. Ballots are counted. You know, all this talk about voter fraud, every single political science study that has been done since forever makes it clear that voting fraud is so small. Every one of you are going to win the lottery before an incident of voter fraud affecting election or you're gonna win the lottery first. You're going to be hit by lightning. You're going to be all of these things. Voter fraud does not have an impact on our elections. I think you might see pockets of disgruntled individuals who go out and want to challenge the results. But I think the incidents will be more anecdotal and isolated. Now, however, if the president holds up in the White House and starts egging on his supporters with the stand back and stand by, for example, things like this, that would be entirely reckless and it would not help the situation. And then I think you might see more and more people going out into the streets and creating an ugly situation. It's one of the reasons why, hopefully whatever happens is decisive immediately. Although still not sure how that's going to go. I think Biden is going to win. And the margin should be comfortable. But whether it's accepted, that's an entirely different answer. So that's a good question. And I think everybody in America is holding their breath and they're hoping that everybody plays by the rules and everybody accepts what happens. It's not just the United States. I think, you read the papers around the world, headlines, and the world is holding its breath. Unfortunately, the United States is no longer viewed as the leader of the free world. That's probably Angela Merkel in Germany. And regardless of the criticisms we've had in the past, pre-Trump, I think the world understands that they need a united and free United States to keep the world operating and relatively stable. The ideas that founded this country and that people have built their lives around, including around the world, are ideas that still resonate. And as much as people like to criticize or march against the United States around the world, they also understand that there's a certain value, a great deal of value in having a leader that at least pays lip service around the world to ideas of freedom and democracy. And so I think the world is holding its collective breath and hoping that things get settled. And I can tell you, they're also hoping that it's not Trump. So well, thank you guys. I appreciate the fact that you're up at 7 and doing this stuff, and looking forward to reading the article. And yeah, you can quote me and misquote me. It's happened before. I know you won't misquote, but if it does, it's all right. Okay. Well, have a good evening, and it was fun, and do it again anytime.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
You guys, you'll have fun with Dr. Cargile. So, all right. I'll talk to you guys later.
Excellent.